Well, hello, y'all. This is Market Explainer. We are the business news podcast. Before we get rolling, folks, I just want to ask you to do us a favor. We have a Patreon. We are getting our levels and tiers set up on our Patreon. It's patreon.com/Market Explainer. Go join our Patreon. We're gonna have Patreon. We're gonna have a cheap tier. We're gonna start throwing up content over there. Also, if you could do us a favor, I don't want you to blast. I don't want you to smash it or blast it or do anything unkind. I just want you to gently caress. Okay, like it's a puppy.
When you say gently caress, it makes me nervous. So I'm sure it makes everyone else.
Just hit that like button.
Hit the like, subscribe. I say hit. Okay. Yeah, but yeah.
I don't want to use that kind of divisive, violent language. I don't want you to hit anything or anyone. I just want you to gently hit that like button.
No, quit. Please stop. Please stop. Go.
Hey, like button, what's going on? Hey,
stop
what's
it.
up, subscribe button?
Stop.
I'm here
Get
often.
into our stories, Danny. Stop it. It's making me uncomfortable.
This is an awesome story. This first one. We have 4 fantastic stories. We've got a lot to get into today. We are always, like I always like to say, we are definitely better than Group Chat Pod. This first one, piece of gold, it is a marker that our economy is amazing and there's zero inflation and there's nothing to be concerned about. As we all know, the price of housing is skyrocketing, and it's perfectly fine. No reason to panic. Has
17% last month.
Has nothing to do with the massive money printing going on at the Federal Reserve. It's totally fine. Everyone remain calm. Don't listen to conspiracy theorists that are saying that this means the end of the good economy in America. All wacky. But now they're going to give you a 40-year mortgage. Ginnie Mae, which for people who don't understand, is this weird incestuous thing where it's defined as a GSE, a government-sponsored entity.
Correct.
Which is a fancy way of saying the federal government's bank. Right?
In a way, yes.
So Ginnie Mae, am I incorrect in saying that Ginnie Mae outlines the product and the banks pick it up and they start offering it to people, and then Ginnie Mae at some point in time in the transaction ends up acquiring the loan back while it is managed by the bank?
That is a correct and layman's way of putting it. But yes, They design products that they think that the government can sell that are government backed. Right? So yes. And in this way, they believe that they can, because currently, look, when you say incestuous, the mortgage industry as a whole, the banking industry as a whole is very incestuous. People make money from each other in a billion different ways. The way loans are handed back and forth and money changes hands back and forth. The mortgage industry and the way it runs all across America, it's how lower levels of mortgage functions is the ability to sell these on the back end, right? And that kind of stuff. And you have second and third markets. So Ginnie Mae's real job, as you said, is to create products that they think can sell on the secondary market. And if they do take hold. So the reason I'm putting that disclaimer on it is just because Ginnie Mae creates this product doesn't necessarily mean that the market
is going to pick it up and
is going to pick it up. And if the secondary market doesn't pick it up, no one will offer a 40-year mortgage. Right. This happens sometimes. They come out with a product or the government, when they use Ginnie Mae to do it, comes out with a new home buyer bonus or something like that may not be picked up on the secondary market because the secondary market...
Which is where the product really matters, is because Ginnie Mae is not they don't go to the consumer, correct? They're a bank.
Correct.
They're a bank to bank. They're a B2B. So what's interesting about this is kind of like if you look at, our cousins to the north, America's hat, Canada. You look at Canada's housing market, and if you're like me and you watch some of those fake HGTV shows, kind of understand it. I actually have family in Canada on both in Toronto and in BC, Vancouver, British Columbia. You kind of understand that, adjusted for the change in currency, housing there is like the entire country is like New York and California, right? Housing is priced silly, right? It's absurd. I think British Columbia has some of the most expensive real estate. You want a small house there adjusted for the difference in currency, 2,000 square feet. I don't know what it is in meters because I'm an American, but the equivalent of a 2,000
I always have to put a
square.
calculator in there. I don't get it.
No, I'm American, so none of this, like, whatever your weird French numbers are, don't mean anything to me.
Yep.
Yeah. So, but I'm just saying, like, the equivalent of a 2,000 square foot house, we're into the half a plus $1 million adjusted for, like, in most of these major markets. And sure, in the smaller markets, Calgary and other places, prices aren't so crazy. But the majority of the population of Canada, there's 100 miles from the U.S. border, and they also, majority live in these bigger cities, just like the U.S. But they have 40-year mortgages up there.
Well, look, they did this in the automotive industry in the last 15 years, right?
Correct.
In the 90s and 2000s, you were not getting a loan on a car that was more than 5 years.
Correct.
You just weren't. They were all like between 3 and 5 years. 5 years, 60 payments was the max you would find on a car. Now, as cars... Go ahead.
Wild, too, back then.
Yeah, and as cars got more expensive, they realized that people could not afford the payments with the 60 more, 60-month payments. So how can I get more of these expensive cars sold? Well, some bank out there started selling 72-month notes. And now you can buy a Tesla on an 8-year loan.
84,
right?
Isn't it 84
Yeah,
months?
I think it's something like that. It doesn't. The point is now you have 6, 7, and 8-year loans on cars. Now, that is so that they can sell you a higher priced product, bringing that monthly payment down. However, that also means that if you're the average American that buys your house and sells it between 5 and 10 years down the road, you've now paid less on your house because you were stretching that payment. And during that time, the bank has made more.
Correct.
You've paid less into your overall wealth, and the bank has made more.
And if you've paid less, your capacity to build equity, because you're coming to the table with it's lower. So again, like I said at the beginning, this is not a bad omen for the economy. Everything is perfectly fine. Keep spending consumer dollars on your credit card. Not a big deal. America's the greatest country in the world. Nothing wrong here. There's no such thing as inflation.
Look, I have zero problems with this existing.
Okay.
They're going to put it through the FHA system, right? They're going to offer the product through the FHA system, which has barriers.
The poorest people are the ones who go FHA.
Again, but that's still most mortgages, right? So this will impact most mortgages. They're also, the thing that I found interesting about this, though, typically when the government creates a product, Ginnie Mae creates a product, they have all kinds of stipulations around it, like VA loans, right? Or USDA loans. They all have these.
If you remember back to when this thing that happened in my lifetime, in your lifetime, the crash of 2000, the great financial crisis, in which I was a 17-year-old mortgage broker. Don't ask how that worked out.
The Great Recession, yes.
Yeah. There was an organization within the federal government, an arm of the executive branch, called Housing and Urban Development. And in 2008, their direction to GSEs, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, Ginnie Mae, was that 56% of their loans had to be subprime, which is a fancy way of saying, hey, you have to give over half of the loans that you give out to people have to be people who cannot afford the loan.
Well, but that obviously changed. That with all the new rules and regulations, that changed, right? And they have a lot of, it's much more difficult to get a loan in today's world. So the FHA came out and said, look, if this product, it's supposed to come out between now and October.
Right.
If we do get this product out and the market does respond, meaning we can sell them on the secondary market, that investors are buying them, then the FHA guidelines that currently exist for 15, 20, 25, and 30-year mortgages apply to this. However, unlike those, there is no loan limit. So FHA has a loan limit. It's a calculation based on the city and state, the average, right, or whatever. They don't want you using government money to overspend on loans and stuff like that. So there's a limit, right? Like here in Austin, it's around $400,000, right? You know what I mean? But there's a limit. If there's no limit on a 40-year loan, meaning you meet all the other FHA criteria, but there's no loan limit, now you have millionaires taking advantage of a 40-year product.
And again, let me point something out. This will work fine. this programs like this devised by the government have never backfired, never inflated the housing market before. They've never crashed the housing market before. So there's no reason to be concerned here at all.
This is one of those where if I had a crystal ball and I was guessing, like a lot of programs that you talk about the Great Recession, it's going to... Millionaires love it. Millionaires don't care about how much interest they pay on loans because they get to keep their money in their pocket. They get to invest it. They'll make more. Millionaires make more money off of their money in their accounts than they ever would on any loan that they pay for. Right?
And millionaires and billionaires, they love a couple of things, and one of the things they love is debt, because debt creates it's not taxable. So they have the cash to go buy. They put their cash in an investment. They take the investment returns. They take out a loan against that, and all of a sudden they have access to their capital without paying taxes. They'll happily pay 10, 15% interest. It doesn't matter, but they'll happily pay 10. Right. They'll write off the interest.
So it's still income because it's a write-off. It's still so billionaires will love this rule, and poor people, it's going to kill them. We talked about on
never happened before.
We've talked about on this podcast before about generations. And how, owning a home and this kind of stuff. And Danny and I think a little differently about the, wealth and owning a home and whatever. But this goes, again, more into your side of if you are between your 20s and 40s and you're signing a 40-year lease, or a 40-year mortgage, you are putting yourself in a situation where that home, that ROI, even with values going up the way they're going, it still makes it crazy math.
So let's just, there's that clip in The Big Short, and my favorite part about that movie is they start the story of how this entire market got inflated in the middle of the story, and just neglected the part where the government was pulling the strings. They put everything at the feet of these greedy bankers. I'm a anarchist, but I'm a capitalist, right? I'm a strict free market anarchist guy, right? I'm not like a huge fan of the bankers. I'm not waving Citibank's flag around, okay?
Right.
But I'm also saying they're greedy bankers. Okay, we expect them to be greedy bankers. But when the government permits them and says, here's a way to be an even greedier bastard, okay? So, again, I'm just saying, I think it was over 52, I think it's over half, 52% of millennials in a survey recently that I think I'm pulling this, it was an article from CNBC, said they regretted going to college because of the volume of debt and how that debt put them behind in life. So let's just use this as a jumping off point for me to say my crazy thing, which is maybe buying a single family home to live in as a residence might, and the big man is correct. This is the easiest entry into building wealth for every person. My parents are immigrants to this country. This is one tool they used to build wealth was a home. Now, and it served them well because when they want to buy the next one, they're not they're buying a way more expensive home. They progressively bought more expensive homes, but they're not coming out of pocket with a lot more money, right? It's always the home that they lived in increased in value. They're capturing that value and they're just passing it down the road into a bigger house. So, but it is a good time to reconsider the proposition, not saying you should invest in real estate, that the proposition that, you're going to buy a house and live in it, and that's going to be a good investment for you. Because these are markers that the government is communicating something to the market in a roundabout way, which is we don't expect houses to get any cheaper anytime soon. Right?
No, and they don't. And there's been I've seen a lot of stuff. Obviously, on a real estate company, my nose is in the grindstone of all real estate news all the time. And there's a lot of people spouting, again, the moratorium, the default moratorium ends at today. We're recording this podcast. There's a couple of things in the works, and this is not that show. We'll get into that in a different thing. Maybe I'll do a blog post about it. But the point, though, is this came about as a way to help. For example, if you lost your job last year and you've been utilizing the moratorium on your back mortgage, right? It is not mortgage forgiveness. This may make the numbers work for that bank to be able to change your loan because the payments are lower and whatever. Now, again, for the small percentage of people that may actually help, right? Having a tool available for them is a good thing. The problem
I'm not against this, okay? I'm not against anything. I'm just suggesting that the way it's going to be used, the same way balloon loans that were used,
arms and balloon notes,
adjustable rate mortgages were used for people back in. So I'm just saying I'm not suggesting or in fact believing that this is going to inflate the market tomorrow and it's all going to go kaboom. I'm just saying the trend ain't good. And the long-term result might not be good in the sense that we're going to inflate the market again. And I think I don't know that that's bueno. But again, we have a situation where the Federal Reserve, which is a private, non-private bank, complicated way, but it's a private, non-private. It is the America's central bank is printing so much money. They have to get this money into the market. This money needs velocity. If this capital lacks velocity, this is a merry-go-round that when it stops, it all starts lighting on fire.
Well, and that's why they come out with these new products.
Because
we live in an economy that has to move. You and I have talked about this. We live in a transaction-based economy. All of our businesses are incestuous to a certain extent.
Right.
We all just transfer money to each other all day long. That's what we do. That's what the American economy relies on, is everybody changing money, even though it's the same set of money. But it changing hand constantly is how we function. But what I was getting at, though, is look, the problem is situations are situational. What I mean by that is one of the reasons I do this podcast is to help educate people on how things work and that kind of stuff. I know Danny laughs every time I say that because he has no problem being against that. But my point is when I say situations are situational and people are people, meaning someone uses this product to buy a house. The idea of this being created, the government does not want you to pay a loan for for the next 40 years. No. They know this is not a great benefit to you. What they want you is to use this maybe to get in a home or refinance your home because you lost your job or whatever. And with the idea that when you get another job 6 months from now and your terms are better, you refinance back to a 30-year mortgage, a 15-year mortgage. That is the idea that's written on paper, so all this stuff gets, passed. Right. The problem is people, the people that do these kind of things, that the government can't come back to you and go, hey, it's time for you to refi. You got a job now again, right? You got to blah, 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 yada, yada. You need to refinance. They don't do that. So what happens is that same person that takes advantage of this so that they can refi to get their back mortgage or whatever, a year from now when they do have a job or a better job or a more paying job, they're just going to keep paying this 40-year mortgage instead of doing it.
My payments went from $1,700 to $1,400. Well, dagnabbit, I can afford that boat now.
Right. I can afford that boat. I can afford that whatever. Vacation. I can blow that money on nothing.
I'm not a hardcore Dave Ramsey, get out of debt, it's going to be your savior guy. I'm not that guy.
I'm not either.
But I'm also a guy who says, well, carrying tons and tons, being that up to your neck in debt where it's just I can afford my payments, but I can't afford the things that I owe payments on. Yeah. That is a dangerous economy to live in. And I'm just saying that as a guy who is, I'm not saying I'm anti-government at all. I'm just saying some people might define me that way. I'm just saying
I'm one of those people that would definitely define you that way.
Sure.
Go ahead.
I'm just saying that I don't know that this is a strong signal that they have this is not good for people, I don't think. Now, that being said, if you're someone...
I think it offers a short-term way out for them to say that, hey, I'm doing something. Right? I'm doing something. I know that not everybody...
The entirety of government is, hey, man, we had to do something. So we decided to screw you over completely. Which is I have conversations with my friends who have certain political persuasions. They're like, well, you had to do something. I was like, so he decided to screw everybody over? That was the plan?
All I'm telling you is if you're looking at this... Talk to more than one person. I put money decisions in the same thing I do medical decisions. Right. Talk to more than one person. That's all. Correct. Because there are bad mortgage people out there. If this becomes a product in October, there are bad mortgage people out there. There's somebody that may, in some way, figure out how to screw you. Just if something doesn't sound right, get more information. Correct. Understand what you're getting into.
More. talk to the financial equivalent of a chiropractor, because they'll always tell you something wacky.
Do not do that at all.
But let me just, before we jump into this next story, I do want to just speculate really quick and say, hey, listen, for the millennials out there that are saying, I agree with you, Danny, you're correct, the big man is wild, he doesn't know what he's talking about, we might be screwed. There's still an opportunity for you to go out there and go to cities where you think there's like, for instance, if in Texas, if I'm investing in Texas, I might go down to Galveston or South Padre and say, hey, with a 40-year, I can actually buy a house and like afford it. And South Padre and Galveston, they're used to short-term rentals as a business. And, hey, maybe there's an opportunity here for me to get a house on a 40-year. And
well, you would have to live in it. You can't use it as an investment property. But,
well, of course, I would live in it. Who said I wasn't going to live in it?
Okay, again, Danny's getting into his scammy behavior.
No,
so that's one thing about FHA is it's not, you can't go buy an investment property.
I never said that
mortgage.
I wasn't going to live in it, big man.
This is for owner occupied only.
This would be owner occupied, and I would just rent out all the other rooms on. I'm just saying,
now to say that they're going to put protocols in place other than asking you, because in Texas, for example, that's all you get asked when you're buying this property owner occupied, right? Like
correct.
Like that's the hurdle you have to jump. Listen, for investment properties and
I'm not
Texas.
saying anyone would ever do this, okay, or that you should do this.
No, you should not.
But I'm just saying, like, if you lived in it for 6 months and then decided you didn't want to live in, America's spring break capital,
Don't listen to Danny, folks. He'll get you in trouble.